Before we get into roller coaster building, I wanted to take the time to redo the placement controls demo. Basically just address all of the things that I either misspoke about or maybe I just possibly missed to demonstrate. I think one item in particular that I got wrong the most was match height. The control does have some bugginess to it. The control isn't perfect, but I have found it works much better. With match height specifically, I do think we're partly at a disadvantage being on a console. I do think the fact that we're on a console does sort of obfuscate that control in its meaning and what it's really supposed to be used for. I don't think the joystick really helps translate that as well as it probably should. Basically what I found is there are more places than I originally demoed that placement is actually used for. And it's the reason why I think this control should be broken out into several different menu groups for the different various types of placement. I do think that anyone picking up this game for the first time, especially having no prior experience, it would really help those types of players out. Players that are probably coming from the PC may not be necessary, but as people have probably caught on, the way that I'm demoing this is sort of like no one's ever played this game before. And honestly, I think that's really how everyone should approach game experience and controls. But regardless, this is what we have to work with. So let's go ahead and do some more analysis and sort of get a good bearing on what placement is actually for. Now, here's something interesting that I missed before. Place, scenery, gardens, and other accessories. It uses the word place. It doesn't say placement, but I did miss that. So that's sort of point number one. To be fair, they did give us some sort of hint here that this is placement. But unfortunately, with the word build being used here, it doesn't really help the situation, right? Because we are building, but we're also placing. Placement is sort of building in a way. And I do think that that does draw a lot of confusion in the controls. We're first going to start with the trees here. The trees are an interesting edge case. We really only get the A button. We just get build. So if I want to just place this tree here, I can't adjust height. I can't match height. I can't even rotate, it looks like. Now I'm going to point out an inconsistency that sort of drives me mad. I feel like this game is definitely riddled with inconsistencies, especially with the map controls into the situation here. But let's just go ahead and build a shrub here. So I'm going to click on shrub. And we would think shrubs would be treated the same way as trees, right? Well, fortunately not. So if I actually press up on the D-pad, that's going to invoke the adjust height. And if I just press up on the left joystick, we're going to see that it actually starts to build a structure underneath the shrub. And if I were to press A, it now just built a shrub on top of a structure. So you can just nuke the whole thing by holding down B and using the bulldoze preview. You all should be experts now, right? Let's see if we can rotate the shrub. So rotate. Okay, we can't rotate the shrub. Can we match height with the shrub? And it does seem to actually be trying to match height with shrub. And I think it's largely because it does build this structure underneath it, right? Let's see if I can zoom in and just try to just place the shrub right on top of this. I don't think it'll let me. I think it's going to want to build this structure below it. But the match height does seem to try and actually honor the shrub. And in fact, all corners too. Look, I can try to go on the far right corner, the far left corner there. I mean, it's actually pretty interesting. That's a little cumbersome to get that corner spot, but that's another trick, I guess, if you didn't know. So I'm not sure if people are catching on to this yet, but we've already seen several variations of placement, right? The trees only use the build button. The shrubs apparently use most of the other controls. For roller coasters, mirror image takes the place of adjust height, but isn't actually mentioned. And as we know, the adjust height works differently when we're in the placement of a shop or stall compared to when we're doing a placement of something in the place, scenery, gardens, and other accessories. I'm now going to switch to something that will allow me to adjust height.
How about just this structure here?
If I press up, now we see it sort of locks us into this up and down arrow. And if we remember, this up and down arrow is actually the same experience that we got when we were using Terraform controls, except we needed to hold down A in order to get this up and down arrow. But in here, we see the variation is you just press up or down on this D-pad, and then it sort of locks you into this mode. You don't need to hold down a button. Now that we're in this mode here, now what we do, we don't press up or down on the D-pad again. That would disengage the mode. What we want to do is use the left joystick, and that's just going to slowly drag things up. So there's actually a couple bugs. If I were to just like move my camera like this with the right joystick and then try to keep going up, sometimes it'll keep going a fair amount, but then it usually normally stalls out or resets just like that. It sort of has to do with where the cursor is located, and that seems to be a pretty big problem. I'm just going to move this menu over here a little bit, just so it's sort of like in the way of me building. I'm going to engage, and now I'm going to press up on the left joystick, and as soon as it hits this menu, you're going to see it just resets and just totally squashes it. It actually kills the up and down arrow completely. As soon as it hits this menu, watch. Boom. So really quick, here's a tip to sidestep the first bug that I mentioned. Let's go ahead and zoom out. That's really the answer here. If we zoom out a little bit, what we're going to be able to do is we're going to be able to get a much higher level view. And so what we can do now is we can toggle that mode by pressing the up, and then we can just drag our cursor, and it gives us a much better range. But you can see we still hit that cursor bug when we got to the very top there. I think it's as soon as like we went over the water. At a certain point, I don't know why or where, but eventually, oh, maybe it was the menu here. Maybe it's because I hit the menu. Let's try it again. As soon as I hit the menu, let's see if it toggles. Boom. So basically any menu, when you're in this mode, if you hit the menu, it's going to disengage. We also have a problem when we're zoomed in. If you're zoomed in really far here, you're going to be basically at the mercy of the viewport. So like I said, you can get a little bit if you kind of like scroll up with it. It does work a little bit, but eventually it's just going to stop. And then as soon as you hit a menu here, it's just going to disengage. This area should look familiar. And I chose this area specifically on purpose because I wanted to properly redo that initial demo of match height. I'm going to go ahead and press ZL, which is the back bottom left of the controller. You can see where my cursor is. The crosshair, this is really the indicator of where we're actually going to be matching height to. And so let me press down L2. And we can see that it does properly match height with this land surface. Now the reason why it wasn't working when it was over the top, let's say the cursor was here, is because the placement has already achieved that height. There's nothing more to match. And that's why matching height has to do with maybe going to the side of an item like this. Really quickly while we're here, we can consistently put this thing into the underground view with match height. So I'm going to hold ZL on this tile and then drag inward. And it actually does throw us into the underground view. I think this is extremely valuable. This was sort of not obvious to me at first. One last thing on placement before we move on to roller coasters. I think it's important to notate these last few things, and I think we can demo them most elegantly in Ride Designer because Ride Designer does give us access to most things with the object selection tool. Now the object selection tool, I am not going to go over this in this video. This is actually going to be, again, part 5 of the series that is going to come out sometime at the end of January. So adjust height, interestingly enough, seems to naturally throw structures underneath many items in here. And I can just demonstrate it really quick with like this garden. Okay. If I actually use the adjust height tool with garden, we're going to see that up and down arrow toggle, right? And then if I use this left joystick and just push upward, it's going to naturally just sort of build these structures right underneath the garden. Now with walls, it's sort of interesting. We do get an adjust height for walls, but it doesn't build any sort of structure underneath it. So we can see here, Ride Designer is really beautiful for showing this. If you look, when I swing my cursor just a little bit to the left here, you're going to see the square light up this other tile. And if I swing it a little bit to the right, it's going to line up this other tile. You can kind of get a glimpse that this is sort of inward outward. So this is maybe like an inward wall and maybe like an outward wall. It's sort of hard to articulate, so I hope this makes sense, but it is just ever so slightly different, and you'll notice that when you get into your building. Or maybe I should say placement.
No pun intended.
But anyway, the variation with how this wall works is if I press up, we are going to get the adjust height, but interestingly enough, there's going to be no structure that's built underneath it. And it does make sense, right? We're sort of kind of like lifting this up like a crane, maybe to some building to match a certain height. And we can actually show a little bit better demo of how valuable this could be at the bottom of a structure. So there's definitely going to be a difference between inward and outward. And this is most likely part of the isometric experience. It's just really hard to sort of wrap your brain around sometimes, like where these things are going to be appearing. But you do get a decent idea by that gray square and the white line that appears down there. Now that we're outward on this thing, let's go ahead and press up on the D-pad. And when I drag up like this, we're going to be able to build outwardly on any part of this structure here. So let's go ahead and build the first one. And now let's press up, up. And this is a really slick way to speed up building walls outside of a structure. And we can verify the isometric view is valid. Yep, does really look to be valid. So that white line that's facing outwardly, we know that this is the right position. So we can press A, up, A, up, A, and we can do this all day. This is extremely fast speed building. And let's try to do the same thing with the steel Latticework. We're gonna make sure that white line is outward here. Press up, 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 up. All right, now I'm going to demo one inconsistency that I'm not a really big fan of. We can basically achieve something called like duplication building, I guess, when you're working with structures. We already proved that we can do up A, up A, up A, and that all works. But with a structure, you're actually able to do something where it sort of kind of completes it. But for some reason, with some of the items like the steel Latticework, unfortunately, we don't benefit from the same speed up. I'm going to demo it first with the Latticework to show it not working. And if I drag up, I would expect the green to sort of duplicate as I'm going up. So if I press here, I would expect all the positions between the bottom and here to sort of be filled with this Latticework. That doesn't happen. I mean, could be a good reason, could be not good reason, but sort of the inconsistency is a little frustrating. I'll just show really quickly with a structure. I'm gonna press up, and now when I drag it, we're gonna see it's duplicating as it goes. We press A, and it gives us a solid structure at that height. So why it doesn't work the same with the Latticework or other items, I'm not really sure. There's a lot of inconsistencies sort of throughout all of the placement building process. Thanks so much for watching this video and coming to my channel. Please do click that like button if you liked it. Send it to a friend, click subscribe. Those are a bunch of free things you can do to help me out. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you in the next video.